Welcome back to Behind the Ballot, where politics meets real life. We break down state and federal issues, showing how policy shapes everyday Americans. Engaged, balanced, and informative. That's our promise. And I'm your host, and I know it's been a while, but I'm your host, Mikkel Jenkins.
And this is Muhammad Alec. We hope you guys understand that June has been quite the month for me and Mikkel. Your two favorite hosts have been quite busy between jobs and World Cup and Love Island. Not the Love Island part, but that's not what this podcast is about. But Mikkel, I'm glad that we're kind of getting some stability after a crazy month.
No, yes, very, very much a crazy month of job promotions, job trips, some good health for Muhammad.
Yeah, I
So it
got
has been a
COVID,
little bit
guys.
of a
I know we
roller
mentioned that
coaster.
last
Yeah,
episode, but got COVID. That stuff sucked. Oh my god. Try not to
yeah. So
drink your
we're
OJ. Get your vitamins in.
that is right. Drink your OJ, take your
Yeah.
vitamins, and you'll end up staying healthy. That's the key to the game. And we are sorry for this very long break that we had to give,
Mm-hmm.
but just with anything, there's always updates with life where you need to change things around. So, unfortunately, this was one of those things, but I am glad that we still have our listeners and our trustful 60 subscribers that have subscribed to our YouTube page. We appreciate every single subscriber and every single listener. But we are going to get right into it because today and since we last spoke, there's been a lot going on. And just as we normally do, we're going to start on the international stage with a primary focus on what's going on with Iran. And as we all know, after days of renewed tit for tat strikes that tested the fragile, very fragile ceasefire in the US and Iran conflict, particularly around the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, which we all know handles roughly 20% of global oil trade. And the United States and Iran have agreed to halt further attacks and resume diplomatic talks this week. So we will see what those talks look like. And President Trump announced progress with technical teams preparing to meet possibly in Switzerland, which was the original meeting ground when you had the Iran delegation actually leave. I think this was actually about 2 weeks ago, I want to say, when this whole signing of this deal was taking place. The Iranian regime and their delegation, should I say, actually ended up leaving the talks because of Donald Trump tweeting about renewed attacks on Iran. And the United States is the first of any nation to actually participate in the World Cup while also being a host
Oh, I
nation
feel
and
bad for
also
them.
bombing
I feel bad for
another
them.
nation. So it's,
Damn. For
I
the
mean,
world wait
it's
for the
terrible.
World Cup side of things, they were the last team to get eliminated from the next stage, and it was because they had. To take a quick 10-second deter from the political situation of here and talk about the football situation. They needed
Yeah.
that. There was 3 games they needed to go a certain way. It wasn't like very specific certain way. It was like one team needed to win, one team needed to lose. If one of those 3 things happened, they would go through. Two teams flipped the result that Iran needed in the very last minute of the game. They got scored on, and then Iran's this hope for the World Cup next stage got blown up in their face, and which is kind of difficult to handle. And one thing that also, speaking back into the political side of things, is that while the United States has been claiming, and I think this is so funny, the good old U.S. side of doing things, well, the U.S. has been working on trying to negotiate with Iran regarding the Strait of Hormuz and more. They actually, I don't know if you saw this, Mikhail, 30 minutes after the close on Friday, the U.S. struck Iran again. And then there was a few
Yeah.
weekend strikes between the two of them. U.S. struck Iran, then
Yes.
Iran
Yes.
struck Kuwait and Bahrain. And then U.S. as of recently, just a few hours ago, actually, like 8 hours ago, U.S. has announced that they're willing to stand down and go back to the talking table. And
Yeah.
I only question how much how much of this is an actual strategy that's actually going to get anything aside from losing the Iranians' patience? You know what I mean? Like, we just see you strike us and then say, oh, we just want to talk. Then strike us again and say, oh, we just want to talk. You
I
or
mean,
Israel are
we
going to
don't
continue to bomb whoever you want, no matter what we ask for.
exactly 100%. I mean, we even saw with the deals that were coming out of this. Um, one, how strategically horrible the deals have been in every iteration of it
Oh yeah. Oh, it almost
that
makes you ask,
comes
like, is
out.
this actually something that they're seriously contemplating on, like, the American government side? It's almost unreal how favorable it is to
No,
the Iranians.
it's very much unreal how favorable it is towards the Iranians. Yes, it very much is. But it is also damaging to the fact that if this war wasn't even started, we would be strategically better off now than we were since this war whenever this war ends, basically. Because when it comes to this potential deal, ceasefire, whatever you want to call it, to end this war, um it all encouples bad attachments compared to Obama's deal. Obama's deal was having the inspectors to go into the Iranian nuclear facilities, and at any moment's notice, and to go in and review those facilities and any other facilities as well. That's the exact same thing that JD Vance was beating his chest over last week,
Yeah.
basically, or over the last 2 weeks, over this deal, beating his chest over that he's going to have the I think it's the IEAE or whatever that acronym
IAIA,
is.
something, yes, it's something
Yeah, it's something
international.
like that.
Yeah, let me. I'm
It's one of
curious. I
those
want to figure this out.
individuals. Yeah, yeah, look it up. But yes, having those inspectors.
IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. God, that is hard to say,
Exactly.
actually.
Yes, and actually, they pulled what Obama said when he signed the agreement and contrasted to what JD Vance said. It's basically it's the same exact thing. We're
Yeah,
getting the same deal, if not worse.
yeah,
Obama sent $1 billion in cash via airplane, while potentially unfrozen assets that are a part of the potential deal are looking at already $6 billion, and that's
yeah,
not even factoring in the sanctions relief that they as in Iran would get from this.
yeah, yeah.
So
And the
it
reparations
doesn't
for the
even
damage done to the country as well as part of the plan. I was like, I
well, yeah.
cannot see.
Thank you,
I
Muhammad.
cannot
On
see.
top of that,
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, on top of that, like you're saying, like, that is another thing. Like, not only are they getting unfrozen assets, not only are they getting the fund to rebuild Iran, but they're getting the sanctions taken off as well. That is three various levels of economic relief that Iran is getting. And at the same token, you have our commander in chief stating that this road to housing bill, probably one of the most important pieces of legislation within only thing that comes close to it is probably I've read through the legislation, is probably, Obamacare and the things that it can really do for individuals on a net positive,
Yeah,
and he just says, "It's a yawn, it's a bore, the SAVE Act is more important," and we're gonna get into
and we'll
that
get more
into
into that in
the,
detail later
uh
on. Yeah, and
yes.
I want to
Yes,
add a
yes,
little.
yes.
I want to add a little bit more about what you were saying as well. Is that because of how hard and strong Trump was beating his chest trying to take credit over ending the situation for a win. I mean, at the end of the day, the deal, even with everything that was included on top of it, also included Iran still controlling the strait. All it was saying
Yes.
is, hey, we'll stop attacking and we'll let the strait be fully open, but things have changed because of this and we're going to continue to control it. And I really do wonder if there was any actual intention of agreeing to of abiding by the agreement on the Americans' part, because it just seems like there really wasn't any plan to actually do something. Because anytime an agreement is made, it gets violated either by America or the Israelis, usually the Israelis. And then on top of that, it's just something that's so as we've already mentioned, so extremely in favor of the Iranians, and it almost makes you do think like, what is the goal here? You know, if the goal is to get the Strait open, this deal doesn't even get that done. You know, and
Oh
if
my
we're
gosh, I
looking
can't
at really
even.
like what the plan is, I don't even know if they know what the plan is.
What is the damn plan? It's
Yeah,
like, so now it's like, what's the plan for this? And it's like I've gotten to the point where it's annoying to follow what's going on with this damn war
yeah,
because it's such lying back and forth over what's a deal, what's not a deal, what's gonna get signed, what's not gonna get signed. And it's like we can't even trust our own officials
yeah,
to state what's in a ceasefire to be true. I have to hear from Al Jahir, the one of the most reputable sources within, I would say, the Middle East when it comes to actual reporting about what's going on with the deal. I can't even trust what's coming from the administration's mouth because it all started with what happened with Lebanon,
yeah.
with them being a part of the deal months ago, and then Israel just taking forward the steps to bomb them, and even them continuing to bomb them, and then even acting rogue enough to explicitly state that no one controls Israel. And we're gonna get to this in the congressional pieces, but Thomas Massey, the warrior, the truth fighter,
The
has a
libertarian of freedom.
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
some kind of nickname. I do love Thomas Massey though.
No, he's great. He's got a amendment on this defense funding bill, which we're going to get into about the Israelis. And I
Yeah.
think Democrats and Republicans need to be forced to vote on this
I mean, with
because
all
one, it's going to
with the
be
big push we're seeing by progressives on the Democrat side of things, may gain some more movement than it normally would under the centrist war hawk Democrat Party that of the
yeah,
current
definitely next
modern
year I can
past.
see. Definitely next year I can see as these individuals are now within this year getting elected. So they'll start to take their seats post November going into 27.
Yeah,
So we know in another major race for a candidate that we had, Malat Kiros, has been getting a lot of national attention. And I do hope that is
I
a
hope she
candidate
wins.
that we have on here that wins. That'll be a nice pat on the back for us,
Yeah,
longevity wise.
yeah,
But
all did us. Not, you know, she. I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did somewhere. Yeah, we did all the work. This is sarcasm, by the way. Maylot put up a very good
complete sarcasm,
campaign.
yeah.
Is
Maylard has been ever since I saw her campaign and who she was running against. I could tell that this was actually someone that's running up, yes, against a huge incumbent, but just given her district and her area, she was more poised to win comparable to our other candidates, who that we've candidates that we've had on. But as well, I applaud the candidates that we've had on, such as Jackson Franklin and other individuals as well. Katie, as well, from New Jersey.
And I
Definitely
want to add this
appreciate
one thing
having
about
those
Maylot
individuals.
that
Yeah,
I did like about her. She was very well spoken, and
yeah,
that's something
very
that
well
being
spoken.
able to explain what you think is a very important skill to have.
Yes, it very much is, especially within this world where you sometimes have to, I don't want to say dumb down, but simplify various terms
Make
so
it
that
clear
you
in a
can have.
way anybody can understand.
Yeah, basically. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, this has some relation, some connection in certain ways, but I remember watching a video and about Republicans and about how a lot of them didn't even know
Yeah.
that January 6th freaking happened. And
So
that
I'll be
just
honest,
goes,
sometimes I forget about it too.
I don't understand how you can forget it. They attacked the Capitol. And she even asked her husband, like, did this actually happen? And he was like, yeah, I don't know where you've been the last like X amount of years. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like where
Yeah.
have all these individuals been? And that's kind of like what Malat does. She brings these high level topics to a more simplified entry level understanding so that you're not over entrenched with verbiage. That's the word I was looking for. With unneeded verbiage on
Yeah.
various things. She literally sticks to what is close to her heart and her voters' heart. So I do hope to see her passing the post come election day, but still wanting to keep into the whole global side of things. This whole war has been this great disaster. I extremely applaud the House and Senate for passing the
War Powers
War
Act.
Powers resolution.
Yeah.
Kudos to
Resolution.
them.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Big
honestly, if I
difference.
was Republicans, I would say fuck Trump. I know we don't curse on here, but the fact that he had the gall and the audacity to go into the GOP lunch and hijack the whole entire thing to where you had Lisa Murkowski asking, "Is he still there?" So you had him and Bill Cassidy sparring back and forth, and Cassidy saying this war with Iran's a failure, and all he wants to do is just try to get the Save Act done, filibuster busted up, but they don't have the votes for it. And also the fact that they don't have the votes for it, not because Democrats won't vote for it, which is already a known, it's because the Republicans won't vote for it.
Yeah.
It is not because of Democrats, it's because of the literal GOP will not vote for the SAVE Act because they don't have the votes for it and they understand the bill, comparable to the president in chief who does not understand a lot of those things and just wants to, break down the rules as much as possible and garner power as much as possible, as we've seen with this unfortunate Supreme Court ruling regarding independent agencies, which we're going to touch on as well. But just rounding up this conversation on Iran, it's terrible that we're not seeing, and there has not been a path put forward to truly end this war with both sides favoring in any way.
Yeah.
We are very much far from that. The only
There
way
was
this
nothing
comes
to really
to a
gain from this in
legitimate
the first place. That's the issue.
there was nothing. Only person that gains from this in any way is Israel, and the fact that they can still. I mean, they can. At the end of the day, they from the outsets of the current memorandum of understanding, they still lose on this. So Iran is really the only country that comes out of this on top.
Yeah.
They get billions of dollars in unfrozen assets, $1 billion in sanctions relief. They can now sell oil because that waiver is lifted. They can then charge the fee of $2 million per tanker that goes through. Because what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Realistically, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
I mean, really, like,
Um,
if the war ends with no money going to Iran and them just claiming the Strait of Hormuz, that's still a win for them. They went from
no,
not
that's
controlling the
still a win.
strait to controlling the strait, and they got attacked in the process. Yeah, that's going to be
Well,
very
any
hard to argue with the Middle East and the East, saying, "Oh, hey, it's not fair for them to control it from a Western standpoint." Like, we're the reason they even went for that further control in the first place. So when it comes to China, Pakistan, Russia, those big people that help Iran, that not necessarily help Iran, but are more open to taking Iran's side compared to the West because of, political allegiances and ties, it's going to be far more difficult to win them over. Whereas right now, I mean, we've seen America and Iran use Pakistan as the mediator. And all of a sudden, because Pakistan, while not the best American ally, we do have friendly relations with them ultimately. And the more we keep mm, egregious behavior. I mean, we've seen the Pakistan president himself. It was like a video of him like clearly distressed when the Iranian convoy envoy said, "Oh,
yeah,
hey, we're leaving. The American president just threatened us in our country in these talks. We have no reason to stay." And it really
yeah,
is
literally,
like, what's the point? What's the point? Like, if we're trying to just make it so Iran has stronger ties to the people in the East, then it's weaker for us. And even then, with the Middle East, we've seen the countries, the Arab and the Gulf states, already increasingly damaged and hit by Iran, and we haven't really done much to even defend them or help them. And the
yeah,
more we
no,
attack,
no, we've done more to retract our military assets from those Gulf countries that we say we have such great relationships with. And we've dove into that throughout the various podcast episodes about how these Gulf states really feel about the United States and everything going forward, because we only prioritize Israel when they're the ones getting strategically attacked when we start launching attacks, literally.
Yeah.
And they truly understand that, our allegiance is to Israel within that region. Everyone else comes second, unfortunately. But
And I
it'll
think that's
be
gonna.
really interesting. Yeah.
And I think
Mhm.
that things. I really. It's tough to tell if this is gonna end before Trump's term is over, because it all really depends on him at that point, honestly. And
If it
because
does, I'll be very surprised.
I would too. I would be too. Even if the country doesn't actively do any militant strikes, I just think him actively sabotaging peace talks officially would be just what extends it. And
Yeah.
I think that with the way the Gulf states have clearly been moving in recent years. I mean, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have that joint defense agreement that they signed in 2025. Pakistan is taking Iran's side on this conflict compared to the American side and trying to be this media. I should say they're not taking the side as much more as they're mediating it and they're seeing both sides from a neutral perspective. And it's clear based off of where the Pakistanis have been addressing the news and more regarding these talks, such as when the Lebanon strikes happened after the initial agreement was signed. We had Iran say, hey, this is part of the agreement that Israel isn't allowed to attack Lebanon. And the U.S. and Israel both said, hey, that was not part of the agreement. And Pakistan had to say, no, Iran's right. That was part of the agreement. So we've
Yep.
seen Pakistan willing to take Iran's side against the United States and Israel, even while serving as a mediator. And we know Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have very good relations to the point where they're willing to establish a NATO-like defense agreement with each other's countries. And the issue is Iran and Saudi hate each other. So it's really just going to
Yeah.
boil down to Saudi thinking, and Saudi's the big player in the Gulf, but there's other players in the Gulf as well, the UAE, Qatar, and more, the ones that control the
Yeah.
oil. And so it'll really just boil down to, is siding with the West worth it financially to fight Iran in like that area of the East? Like, would it be better for us to not care about this and focus on our own region in our own way, or would it be better for us to keep allying with the West? And I think as time goes on, we're just going to see a bigger split from the Middle East, and they're going to really just be focusing on their own region compared to
Yeah.
letting
I mean, as
America
they
get so
should.
involved.
We need to focus on our own region. That's what this president promised. And he's fallen
America
very much
first.
short
No,
of that.
has not been that at all.
It has not been America first at all. At all. And this war very much puts that in the peer view, but his legislation puts that in a higher echelon when it comes to America first. So we are going to now move to, excuse me, the domestic side of things. And there is a lot going on between today and tomorrow, actually. At least I think three or four important Supreme Court rulings have been dropped, with the main one being the one that was dropped today in a 5-4 decision. The Supreme Court rejected President Trump's challenge to state laws allowing mail in ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted if they arrive late. The ruling affirms federal law does not bar reasonable grace periods, preserving state flexibility ahead of the midterms. This is seen as protecting access amid logistical realities, because if this ruling did basically state that ballots received after election day would be invalid, there would be a lot of logistical issues that a lot of states would have to follow up on. But there are critics that highlight the risk of delayed results and fraud concerns, though documented cases remain very rare,
Yeah,
which we talked
it's
about how the Heritage Foundation has only found, I think, like point 1.2% of actual fraud that can actually sway an election when it comes to these elections at every level, municipal, state, and federal. And the fact that Trump himself voted by mail, and the fact that he wanted to have the court to side with him. This is a very big win for voters across the board, because then at that point, if it's shot down, then what do you do about individuals overseas? What do you do
Yeah.
about all of these things? And this is now renewed his fanatical push for the Save Act, which we've talked about. Democrats aren't going to vote for it. Republicans aren't going to vote for it, especially the ones that have been nixed by Trump throughout this primary season. Cassidy, Nancy Mace, Massey, all these individuals. But they understand that this bill does more harm than good. I've actually seen statistics stating that it's Republicans it would hurt more, because the Republican population are the individuals that don't have the passports, that don't have license, marriage licenses changed since being married.
Yeah.
All of those things more so impact Republicans than they impact Democrats. It would be about 3-to-1 ratio if this happened.
Yeah.
So it's like at the same cusp, they're shooting themselves in the foot like they did with the terrible big beautiful bill and healthcare cuts going to drastically hit in 27. This bill will shoot them in the foot as well if it is to get passed, but it will not, because the Senate understands how god awful this bill is, and thank God for the Senate being the only reasonable and sensible
I mean,
congressional body.
think about it from this perspective. If you're a Republican in general, and it's what Mike Johnson's a wimp. I'll say that
Oh my
Mike
gosh, he's
Johnson and
such a
most of the House
lapdog for
Republicans, yeah,
Donald Trump. My
seriously,
gosh.
they are wimps. Mike Johnson even came out and said that if once the Republicans lose power, if there's investigations that are going to occur to any of the House members or anybody in the Republican Party for what was occurring during his time, that Johnson will block it ahead of time from his current position of power. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. And the guy's a wimp. But aside from that, I think that what we're really seeing also from the Senate Republicans is an actual stand on conservatism, because this would just expand federal power over state power when it regards to an election.
Exactly.
So think
Exactly.
about it. Just logically look at this. If you're voting for this, you're just saying, yeah, give the federal government more power to control state elections. All right. So then, what about what happens next? What's the next step in that process of giving the federal government more power over the elections? What if they require specific things that if you don't do or don't have, they won't be able to vote in the first place? And then,
That's like the
that's
Save Act. Yeah.
yeah,
Literally.
the Save Act is that, just with the argument of, oh, it's just for real IDs that you can. In most states require ID to vote already. You just
No,
don't need to.
it goes further. You have to do proof of ID and proof of citizenship.
Really?
That the proof of citizenship is the hardest threshold to get through.
Yeah,
Proof of ID, that's fine, but it's
the
has to
passport,
be
the certification that you need to prove that you're a citizen of the United States.
that
Yeah,
takes a lot.
yeah,
People don't have that. You can't. How do you want me to produce an ID and a passport to prove my citizenship? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
people don't have those documents on hand at all, especially in these deep South areas where poverty is written. Just in like they talk about these democratic cities and so forth, where you have Mandami doing the best thing possible. If he could run for president, I really do think the Republicans would shit their pants
He would
across
be
the board if
probably.
he
He's
could
very
run for president.
charismatic.
He just gets things done.
Yeah,
I'm one too that I have not seen a politician move with
get
as
the people
much
moving.
aura as him. The only last person I would say that didn't even see, but like read about, or you could say like '08 Obama was kind of moving like that, not truly, but I mean he got he started stabilizing the economy. I think Obamacare was within that last year within his term, so he did expend a lot of his political capital. But it's like with Mandami, he keeps expending his political capital, but he has so much because he's just such a great person. It's also good to see that not only in New York but also the mayor in Baltimore, I believe, Muhammad, if I'm not
Brandon
wrong,
Scott. I love Brandon Scott. I
the
voted
young
for him.
mayor, he is doing great things, and
I
I
think
really
I
hope.
definitely can see him going for something more and bigger in the future.
Yeah, he could be the successor of Westmore within
Yeah.
that state. But I truly think that this is a very positive, eye-opening moment for individuals that want to get into this process and to see younger individuals, I should say middle-aged, yeah, middle-aged younger individuals because people usually in power in their like 60s, 70s, 80s.
Non-boomers, on anyone
But
that isn't
usually,
a
yeah,
boomer.
non-boomers basically just getting the job done
Yeah.
and standing on their values and morals. I think that's the most important thing that the younger generation is truly able to see from these two individuals, and even John Ossoff, who has come into very good highlights for possibly being the Democrats' Obama, is what I've been seeing circulated on X recently. That he is that the way that he talks, his demeanor, his policies, Georgia, red state. I mean, he's got everything in his bag to basically look to run for office at the highest level if he traditionally wanted to, honestly,
Yeah.
across the board.
I mean, we'll see.
And
The Democratic Party is really wide open right now. I mean, it'll be. I think the party's definitely going to go into like the more progressive area, but whether or not the president of that, like the person who represents the Democratic Party from the top, is going to be more of a centrist or more of a full blown. I don't think it'll be a full blown progressive, but I absolutely do expect the whoever's in power to have to bend the knee a little bit to a progressive ideology. And by that, I don't mean things like healthcare. If Medicare for all got passed, I'd be so static, but I don't expect it to. But I just more so
yeah,
mean
no.
things like the non unquestioning loyalty militaristically to Israel, for example. I mean, that's just one of the big things.
Yeah, that is one of the big things, and we will get to that
Yeah,
in the
in due
legislative
time. But
section.
let's continue to keep talking about these Supreme Court cases because we kind of we're talking about the Save Act and how the Democrats could easily how that's more of a Democratic mentality in terms of federal power, and also how the Republicans trying to pass that don't want to do it in the Senate for that very reason because it's federal power, state power. That's the anti-conservatism. And
Yes.
Mikhail, I want you to talk a little about now more about the expansion of the presidential firing power of what the president can do for independent agencies because you can explain this better than I can.
Yeah. Bye bye, independent agencies. See ya. Gone. Completely out the door. 6-3 ruling, the court dramatically expanded the president's ability to remove leaders of most independent agencies without cause, largely limiting the Humphreys executor precedent, which is a 90-year precedent. The Federal Reserve, though, remains protected. So this strengthens, obviously, White House control over entities like the FTC and the NLRB. And we all know the FTC came under scrutiny after they were going after the Stephen Colbert show. I believe it was him, right? Stephen
Yeah,
Colbert? Was
it
it Stephen
was.
Colbert? Yeah, after
It
they were
was.
going after him. And yeah, independent agencies, good luck, God bless. You had your run, but yes, you will have every 4 years the president will now be able to remove every single individual from a independent agency and instill their own person every
I
single
remember
time.
even Ben Shapiro was like, "I'm glad that Trump can't do that because then when the Democrats can do that, it's going to be an issue." And it's just
That's exactly what's going to happen. Every 4 years, you will see someone come into office, strip everyone from their highest rank, and put their own people in to do what they want to be done. And that is such a deterioration of truly what independent agencies should be. Personally, these independent agencies, these leaders should never be appointed by the president. It should always go through the same thing the cabinet goes through, a hearing process, testimony process with the Senate. I know that can probably be long, grueling, and a red tape process, but that's how you escape what we have technically now. You have that the president can now just free reign fire across the board besides the Fed,
honestly, I don't think
besides the Federal
I
Reserve.
hope and I don't think we've had a president with this poor of a temperament ever possibly. I don't know enough about anything before the 60s in terms of how presidents would act day to day honestly. But this just
It never really was a thing, like to like actively look into your independent agencies who appointed them, because that's how most of these independent agencies work. It's by appointment,
Yeah.
and then removing them just because of that appointment. That's never like I don't think Bush removed Clinton's people. I don't think Obama removed Bush's people. Obviously they couldn't at the time
Yeah.
because this ruling wasn't handed down, but still they still kept them in place. And that kind of still sticks to that level of checks and balances that everyone knows very well. The independent agencies offer that form in some way. And just touching on that a little bit, the nonsense coming out the White House about how separation of church and state is never mentioned in the Constitution. Do not believe that BS. Separated church and state is very much within the Constitution.
Very much
And if
outlined
they
in
want to start,
explicitly, honestly.
yeah, and if they want to start saying church and state are the same things, then that means these churches can start paying their fair share of taxes to the states, and then we can go from there. Once that happens, I'm all game if you want to start talking about separation of church and state. But yes, this still more so leads to the grander conversation of the further deterioration of the stone institutions and precedents that have been set forth and followed by many prior presidents that we are now seeing eroding almost every single day from this administration. And it's truly sad to see. And there's also other court cases that somewhat align with what's going on. You have the E. Jane Carroll case, which we'll quickly go over. Basically, the court is leaving the $5 million judgment from the 2023 sexual abuse and defamation case, meaning that Donald Trump has to pay this individual, E. Jane Carroll, $5 million. And moving on to the temporary protected service ruling for Haitian and Syrian individuals, which was a 6-3 decision. Clear determination of temporary protection status for about 350,000 Haitians and several thousand Syrians. There will be judicial review of many DHS determinations, which will be limited, and work authorizations for these individuals are set to end soon. Obviously, this is going to impact families, employers, and various key sectors and communities with debates over humanitarian needs versus ending temporary protections that had become long term. And then tomorrow, thank you. Tomorrow comes the big beast.
Oh, the
The
birthright
big
citizenship.
beast comes tomorrow. Birthright citizenship. It is expected to be ruled tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, that ruling is supposed to be coming. Tomorrow morning, we will know whether or not the
Paraguay beat
Supreme
Germany.
Court.
Paraguay just beat Germany. Oh my God, Paraguay
Oh,
just beat Germany.
wait, Paraguay just beat Germany?
Paraguay just beat Germany on penalties. Oh my God.
Oh God.
Oh my God, Germany's out.
Nuh-uh.
Yep.
Germany's out.
Round of 32. They didn't even make it to the 16. Germany is out. Oh my God.
I know them boys had to be like plus 650.
Oh, they're one of the World Cup. It was like Argentina, France, Germany, and Spain. We're like four of the top five.
Damn.
Oh my God. Good for
Daisha
Paraguay.
Shaisha.
Good for Paraguay. Oh
That's
my
good for
God.
Paraguay. Country that most people didn't even know existed.
South America representing.
Yeah, no, seriously, South America represent. Great for them. Good shit. Damn, that's crazy.
Right, right. Oh, I
There's
had
still
to
one more
interrupt.
game
I
on
had to
tonight, I'm
interrupt. I
pretty
had
sure.
the penalty shootout in front of me. I was like, oh my God, I got to say something about this.
No, yeah, no, that's perfect to say that. But
Yeah, back to
yes,
the Supreme Court cases and talk about birthright
yes,
citizenship. That does
birthright
look like it's going to
citizenship.
be settled on tomorrow. This week, very soon.
No, it has to be. It has to be. If
Yeah,
not, they'd have to do it next term. Their term ends tomorrow, so this is going to be it.
yeah.
This is literally it. I mean, I don't know what to expect. I mean, when they did Roe v. Wade, they had the barrier put up in front of the Supreme Court. There is no barrier in front of the Supreme Court now. So that gives me some inclination that it might be a favorable ruling
Yeah.
for birthright citizenship in
Yeah.
regards to what happened with Roe v. Wade, honestly. But yes, we will see, and I will be reacting to that when that happens on my personal page.
Yeah.
But it is insane. We will see what we will. I don't know what's gonna happen. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know what's gonna happen,
I
but
got my fingers crossed because it's pretty clear. You know, like I'll. This is with separation of church and state. It's in the argument is people in the First Amendment. It clearly states the government shall not promote one religion,
clearly
shall not favor one religion. The government shall not have an established religion. The country shall not have an established religion. And then it goes further to say there will be no religious test nor more to determine public office. Basically showing a specific religion, a government sponsored religion or a government oriented religion has no
right.
right in America. And
Yeah,
so
we're not
whenever
a
people think about combining
Christian
church and
nation.
state, that's where people
Yeah,
say, well, there's clearly a separation. Clearly, the government can't promote one specific church nor have an official government, a church of the government. And
exactly. That's why when people say like
but with birthright citizenship, it's explicitly clear. I believe which amendment is that, MJ? I'm actually blanking on this right now.
birthright citizenship, 14th, I want to say.
Yeah, I believe it was 14. Yeah, I was thinking 14 or 16. But what the 14th Amendment
16
said,
is women's rights, I think.
so the text says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states where they reside. That's literally incredibly clear. Very much
Incredibly clear.
clear about what it means to have birthright citizenship. You're born here,
I
you're a
think
citizen.
I think depending upon what this ruling details will truly decide whether or not Democrats go full on with expanding the court.
Yeah. We'll
If
see. We'll see.
I truly think that's what you got. I mean, at this point, it's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
At this point, is what you gotta do. But wrapping up that Supreme Court talk, we're gonna move on to our last section here, looking at congressional action this week. Me for one, I was pretty happy actually that the House and Senate came together in bipartisan measure and passed the Road to Housing Act. But unfortunately, Donald Trump derailed it all. Had everything set up, had the signing set up, had the stage set up, all of this grandiorness for this grand signing for a bill that would help out individuals in our generation, Mohammed, me and you, and younger generations. But President Trump canceled the signing ceremony for the bipartisan 21st Century Road to Housing Act, which passed with strong margins, demanding progress on the Save America Act first. He wants that passed before this bill can even be done. But I am sure he did not know that a bill, I have it, the bill will pass in 10 days, regardless of uh, his vote or not. They'll pass within 10 days, whether or not he signs it or not. And if he vetoes the bill, I know they have enough votes to override his veto. So, regardless, this is a bill that's going to become law. And he can throw his temper tantrum, all this BS nonsense to get this SAVE Act, which, as we talked about, would actually put Republicans in a disadvantage across the board and disenfranchise a lot of voters from gaining access to the ballot box. That he is barreling down on this, but the bill streamlines regulations, modernizes programs like home, supports supply increases, manufactured housing and veterans' needs, and limits large institutional investors in single family homes. Elizabeth Warren was a champion on this bill. And while not a complete fix for affordability, as local zoning remains key to this, it's meaningful progress and holding it risk delaying relief for families facing high costs. And he said today he doesn't want to drive down housing costs. He wants to keep it up. So that means those institutional investors and those older individuals, those lobbyists for those older individuals, are in his ear very much so. and he is listening to him. He's not listening to the younger Americans that actually came out to vote for him in troves and all of these things. Now he's listening to the older Americans that want to keep their houses and outprice us younger Americans from ever achieving the American dream, where the boomers were able to get the best layup on the economy ever since. And we have been trailing behind every single year behind them. And it's just so sad to see that this housing bill is being held hostage for a nonsensical, non-passing, non-partisan Save America Act piece of legislation, which would do anything far from that. It would not save the America Act. It would just prioritize keeping Republicans in power, even though they are very much unfavorable across the board. Across the board. But from that, we're going to move to the Save America Act and the filibuster and reconciliation battles. So, as we talked about, the House passed the SAVE Act, which requires proof of citizenship for registration to enhance election integrity. Senate progress is stalled due to filibuster concerns. They don't have the votes to overturn the filibuster and or vote for the SAVE Act. And Senator Tom Tillis called the timely passage nearly impossible. Efforts continue via reconciliation or attaching to the NDAA, which is the Defense Funding Appropriation, including grants for states adopting stricter rules. So they're trying to make it a opt-in program instead of a opt-out program. But this pits security priorities against procedural realities and other must pass legislation, exposing coalition tensions. As we all know, the Senate is the one that's actually being able to get good passage on legislation, and the House has been very much far from that. Now, just wanting to move to the Kids Act, which we talked on a little bit during our last episode, but the House advanced the Kids Internet and Digital Safety Act package with KOS elements for parental controls. I've seen Justin Amash, a strong libertarian, speak out about this bill very graciously, saying that
Yeah.
it is a more so impediment on individuals searching the web, and it now would require a tertiary level of security from the United States on Americans, and basically what websites they go onto and the level of clearance they'll have to access these websites. So yes, I do appreciate how he's speaking out about this bill, because you don't see individuals really talking about it like that. I appreciate the levels of security they are taking in terms of children, because I know that it's very important, and children have access, especially now in this digital age, to information that they, in other words, should not technically be privy to until they get of a certain age. But definitely some dangers with this bill as it comes to um, the various security mechanisms that would be implemented for individuals of the older age, but it is key for individuals of the younger age. So it's going to be interesting to see if there is any bipartisanship amendments proposed for this bill to go for that when it comes to security for the older individuals. So we will see what does come from that.
And
But
one thing I do want to add,
yeah,
in my opinion, if I think Congress should pass a law to allow, basically have these people who create, mobile phones, for example, smartphones like Apple, to just have them have like a parent mode where you can have a device where you can't download certain apps, where you can only download certain apps, and you can't do things XYZ. A lot of people will get their kids either old phones where you can't browse the internet, or they'll get them like an iPod or something where they just listen to music. Point
yeah,
being is
yeah.
they avoid the smartphone because it's just unfettered internet access, which is very unhealthy. And that's speaking from someone who, as a kid, probably spent too much time playing video games and on the internet. And
Yeah.
the issue is that
I mean,
doesn't exist. That doesn't
that's
exist. I
what
mean,
Toy
you can
Story
like give
5
your
was
kid a
about.
phone with like with like very little apps. They can still explore Safari. Literally, you can
Yeah.
give a kid a phone. They're good. It'll still be able to literally explore the internet off default. You can't block that. You can't.
Yeah, you can't block that. That's literally what I think Toy Story 5 was basically kind of about.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the movie, but I just heard about the movie.
Yeah.
But it's basically that new age of technology where basically you have access to everything and you're more so out of touch with playing with toys in the outside kind of world and so forth. And that's very much true for this younger generation that's growing up. They're growing up where they have to learn how to live with machinery, but then at the same time have to deal with the fact that this machinery is going to be taking their jobs. That's a very tough pill to swallow for this generation. And I appreciate the various states that have stood up against the AI data centers and so forth. And it's a very good move because the younger generation is going to need some breakage on all of this to be able to set up a life for themselves that is not a constant cycle of borrowing, debt, renting, and all of those things. The
Yeah.
American dream is owning your own, and we are very much falling, if not have fallen, from that. And just on this last piece of legislation, which is very important, and it deals with the NDAA provisions, and that is the fiscal year 27 Defense Spending Act, basically. And Representative Thomas Massey advanced an amendment to strike 3.3 billion in Israeli military funding with bipartisan interest. And I am extremely disheartened to see that establishment Democrats have been actively working against this.
Of course they have, dude. Chuck Schumer
And
loves
it's a
Israel.
shame. Yeah, it's a shame to see, given all of the strides that the progressives have made within this area, that basically aligning with Israel is basically a death sentence on the primary stage when it comes to Democrats. And that has been the case for a lot of these elections, for basically all of them in a sense. But it's terrible to see that you have a representative who was pushed out by the president because he was pushing for transparency of the Epstein files, but then now you have him actively trying to remove the 3.3 billion dollars in Israeli military financing, and is getting bipartisan interest, and it's going to be shot down, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And just think about what that $3.3 billion dollars could be used for to benefit your situation at home and what you're going through. But no, you're
It's
gonna
just a drop in
see.
the bucket for the overall what the U.S. spends in a year. But I, I think the analogy that's good to apply to the situation is that
No,
just because you
100%,
might have a
because that
thousand pounds on your shoulders doesn't mean you don't take off 1 pound. You know what I mean?
exactly, that 3.3 billion could do a lot, to help with average Americans and so forth,
And the
and it's
symbolism
time and
too
time
of it, of like
again.
taking a step away from constantly
Yeah,
without
and
without
Americans want
any,
that.
what's the word I'm looking for, conditionless military support for Israel. I mean, once we say, okay, we're done with this, that stage is behind this country, we're no longer fed up and dealing with this rabid dog behavior that you're displaying, it's going to change things within the country, because I think it'll take us more away from that very, I mean, in the last 40, 50 years, the Middle East has been the US's military playground, and Israel has been
Basically,
their
yeah.
proxy about going through that. So the
Yeah.
question is then, where's the U.S. going to focus its military efforts then, if it is going to do it at all? Will the new change in the political state of the country result in an actual peaceful period of the United States, or is the imperialism, or is the empire, to say properly, going to look for a new target, probably in Africa or somewhere, or South America? Then
Yeah, I was gonna
likely
say probably
Africa.
within our own region to further consolidate power
I'll
if
say the
this.
Venezuela. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would do anything bold like the Venezuelan move, like what Trump did. But
Yeah, no, no, no,
I
no,
mean,
no.
we've seen it in the past. You throw in a civil war. You say you're coming in to help the country out. X, Y, Z. You're militarily involved in there.
Basically, that
Yeah.
is basically, and just like all the MAGA voters, me and Muhammad are proponents of, no new wars, America first, but we've definitely fallen greatly from that ever since Liberation Day.
I
Or
had someone who voted for Trump who's close to me seriously tell me that he ended multiple wars, and I was like, "What wars has he ended? Which? None.
yeah, I mean,
No, literally none."
Yeah, I've had people that have talked to me about the SAVE Act and voter fraud and all that stuff, and I'm like, well, just find me a study that can accurately state that there is voter fraud that leads to elections being skewed to a certain individual. Now, pockets of voter fraud that has always happened. I'm not saying there is not voter fraud. I'm saying the mass voter fraud that this president is staking and the mass voter fraud that he is lining up as his evidence for the SAVE Act does not hold up as well once you start asking for actual data and numbers.
Yeah.
Turns to emotions, and Democrats just want criminals and all these individuals to vote for them X, Y, and Z. It's like you can say that, but still, once again, you're pulling from emotions. You don't have any facts to just say. So it's like, then what's the point of having this conversation? Because the facts and data will always speak for themselves. Emotions will never uh ever beat that in a
Yeah.
sense. And we're gonna see what comes from this legislation as this week, as I think we're looking to get back on Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, for another episode. So there will be updates from Wednesday because I know there are votes happening on Wednesday for a lot of these pieces of legislation. So we will see what comes from it. But that is all that I had today, Muhammad.
That's all I got as well, Mikhail. I think it's been a good episode. It's been nice to kind of get back to the normal schedule, actually doing this on a Monday around the actual time that we're supposed to do it.
Yes.
And we'll see about doing it Wednesday. If you can do it earlier on Wednesday, then it'll be fine with me. But if not Thursday, we'll be perfectly fine as well. If, we'll let you guys know on the schedule for this week. We'll update that then. But I've got nothing else, Mikhail.
Yes, I have nothing else. And to our listeners, thank you as always. Thank you to listening to Behind a Ballot, where we bring politics into real life. Stay critical, stay involved, and most importantly, keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot. Thank you.
And this is Muhammad Alec as well signing off. Thank you all for chiming in. We know we always appreciate you guys' support. God bless you all. God bless America. And good luck, USA, in the soccer game on Wednesday. USA versus Boston. You got honestly, I'd be happy for
USA.
you. I'm gonna be
USA.
happy either way, but I do. If Bosnia wins, I'll be a little bit more excited because they're not expected to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Polymarket's got USA at like 86%, Bosnia at like 13.
It's the
So we'll
home field
see.
advantage plays a big part. If they're playing in like a
Yeah.
neutral center, it'd be more like 60-40, 65-35. But US playing in US is difficult to get around.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually want to take this hot take. This person's, I don't know if you can see this, but it said hot take. If we keep doing the same stupid corporate BS that led to Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0, it will definitely not lead to Trump 3.0.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just saying the more if
Yeah.
we do the same stuff, we're gonna get the same results.
That's exactly what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, that's exactly what would happen, but we'll see if that would be
We'll see how things
the
change as things
precipice
change. Yeah.
of these elections.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for listening in.